We are back like we never left. Now we just got our inventory open, chilling, just after we beat the Bell Beast. So we're just seeing what the Silk Heart actually does, because at this point, I don't know. Yeah, once that was over, I was greeted with a nice surprise, let's say. And now with the goodest girl spawned in, we have our very own massive pet. It's just larger than us. You can pet her by just slapping her on the face or on the back, and, well, she loves it. She purrs and stomps and does all this pretty cool stuff. And we can travel now. Fast travel's unlocked through the Bellways. Once we return to Bone Bottom, we scare the absolute ever-loving shit out of a pilgrim, to which he will never be seen again. So, sorry about that. Picking up where we left off, we get back to the Marrow, where we go right this time, discovering something brand new. Here's our lovely friend. We got a big-ass bell. So this is going to chime for us, and then we're going to get a nice surprise at the end. And my oh my, look what's here. It's a bench. Now we got a spot to rest at, and, well, luckily the run back wasn't too bad for Bell Beast, but now we got another spot to rest at. We move through a little bit of the Marrow, get a little further. Here you can see those lovely poppy things. They're like these little flower balls, where you have to diagonal pogo on them. I hated these things, man. As you can see, I missed that first one. We also found an explosive rock here. We have to deal with this little pain in the ass. And from there, we can drop down and discover our first craft metal. Heading more into the unknown, we see a new area open up. As you can see, that little door looks kind of different, but I made the very, very wise decision to drop down and rest at a bench in a nearby building. Once I rested at the bench, I went back out and to the lava area, the main area of the Marrow, and explored a little bit around there. At this point, I found something pretty interesting, which was the opening to a new area. And welcome to the Deep Docks, a place that was going to give me a lot of trouble later on in the game. Through exploring a little bit, I found a little toll bench, so I had to pay to sit down. So we all love capitalism for that reason, but that aside, it was very nice to have my first bench in this new area. I also opened up the shortcut to the Marrow from Deep Docks, which was that giant long section with lava that you couldn't cross before. From there, I decided I wasn't really ready to explore Deep Docks, so I went back to the Marrow, and here's a little compilation of me failing at those little red round pillow things. When I was done being so timid, I went to see the new area. Of course, I went to the bench beforehand, because I was met with this. This guy is every new Silksong player's worst nightmare. I mean, you are dashless, you have no maneuverability around this guy, so you're kind of left just cowering in fear while he just takes his swings at you. After some heavy blows, I decide to nope the fuck out of there. I'm gone. This guy actually proceeded to give me a pretty difficult time, so I died a few times fighting him. But finally, on one of these, I was able to pull it off, and my efforts, they were enough. In hindsight, this was actually very dumb, because I didn't have an ability that I would have likely needed to beat this guy without much struggle, but I decided to just thug it out anyway, which was not good, and it led to me dying a few times over the span of about 10 minutes. And finally, with enough persistence, the headache was eventually completely gone. However, I wish I could say the same about the next area, because it was about to give me a complete meltdown, just because of how awful and annoying the platforming was at this stage of the game. I went back to Deep Docks, decided to cool it off Hunter's March, and eventually found Chakra, so I ended up getting a map, which is pretty handy. Venturing on down further into Deep Docks, I found this locked gate, which will be very important later on. I also came across this room here, which had this really cool lava rock mechanic. I really enjoyed having to hop around a little bit. It made a lot of sense in the context of the game. But in this room, I do end up finding a silk spool. From that silk spool, I ventured back around to Chakra, and then eventually to the Bellway, where I ended up opening the transportation system for Bellbeast. Venturing around Deep Docks more, I found a bench, another toll booth I guess you could say, where I saved my progress here. I also took the liberty of marking things on the map that I couldn't yet explore, which honestly is a very, very helpful strategy that people should take advantage of. Keeping with the theme of exploring, I came across this room, which has a nice little wave room. And we all know that we really love just getting absolutely piled on by enemies. Honestly, the first wave wasn't too bad. It was just one of those guys. But the second wave was even easier. It just had two crawling guys around. I didn't really care too much about it. I wasn't concerned. The third wave was also pretty easy. It just had two flying ants. And honestly, they're not hard to deal with, as you can see. I just silk speared the crap out of both of them. And lastly, we have a flying one and one of the ground troops that's actually, I guess, a trained warrior. But after healing, even that warrior went down pretty easy. And now it was finally time to come across this room. This room is massively important towards progression and also just quality of life, because Hornet walks very slow. Every time you see a new one of these shrines, this means you're about to acquire a huge ability, so I was pretty excited to see what I was going to get. And at long last, we have our dash. And a sprint now, because in the first game, you ain't have a sprint, it was just a dash. But I'm really, really glad that Team Cherry decided to implement a sprint, because man, that just makes things so much quicker. Using the new mobility, I took on this guy, and it was so much easier than before. For some odd reason, I made the strange decision to go back to Hunter's March, which is definitely not an ideal place to be, as we will soon find out. I did have many mistakes in this room, I had so many platforming fails, and it wasn't even really a hard section. I do get up to the top of the room though, and save a flea, which I was kinda happy about. They're fluffy. However, the next room really kicked my ass. There's a trap there, and then this happens. And there I claim my second death of the playthrough. This room right here, single-handedly made me so angry. And here's why. It's a wave room, with all the ants that have like as many movesets as a boss, and there's a lot of them. I barely squeezed by the first wave, and Chakra joins me for the next, which I was pretty happy about. The second wave goes down easy. The third wave, on the other hand, was pretty rough. On the fifth and final wave, I think, I end up claiming my third death of the playthrough. I don't even end up getting back to the room I died in. Instead, I claim my third death in this room alone. Finally, I make it back to the room I died in the first time, and I was able to actually clear it this time. All the waves go down relatively smoothly. 1 gets tackled, 2's down, same with 3 and 4, and then when 5 rolls around, I did pretty decent. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't on the ropes. As you can see, I'm at 1 mask, which was quite frightening. But thank you, Chakra. I make the very unwise decision to purchase the map and then continue forward into the main part of Hunter's March. And here, I claim my 4th death within the main room. So now I have to backtrack all the way and get my stuff back. I went to the bottom of the well and got my cocoon. I guess it's kind of a well. And I went to the right and opened up a shortcut into Deep Docks. This was also accompanied by a couple of fails on the platforming section. And once that shortcut was opened up, here's a clip of a bunch of my fails. I finally made it to the top, where I was greeted with a bench. Unfortunately, this bench was trapped! I wasn't really expecting this bench to be trapped, obviously. It's like, you know, a checkpoint. Anyway, I went across the hall, and I found Gilly. In this shard room, I also found a secret entrance to another trapped room. It's got a bunch of spikes, and a bunch of other deadly nice things. Just like that. But at the end of the room, you can find an NPC called the Mottled Scar. You can buy a couple tools off of him, which are, in his defense, very helpful tools. I did a little more exploring and found this separate room over here. It's got an airstream, a bunch of things to bounce off of, and it also has a memory locket. When I got back to Deep Docks, I encountered this enemy, or this boss, and her name is Lace. This will be the full fight that I had with Lace, so it's going to be a little bit lengthy, but overall the fight was pretty sick, and I was just trying to feel out her moves here. She gives a very Hornet type feel, like Hornet in the first game obviously, but this is basically Hornet's rival, I guess, just like Hornet was the Knight's rival. I got in a nice heal there, and I think I'm getting my patterns down pretty well. I say that, and then I just get parried and cooked. With this being my first try at the fight, it's a little bit sloppy in how I'm performing, because I genuinely don't know any of her moves before this. As you can see, I got pretty low. I'm down on 2 masks. I need a heal desperately. And at this point in the game, I actually don't know that you can heal midair. So I assume I had to find an open spot on the arena like that. For some reason, instead of just hitting her head on with horizontal slashes, I decide to go with pogos a lot, which is really intriguing, especially since I don't know the pogos that well in this game. A little bit of a funny thing, you can hit her in the lava and she takes decent damage from what I've heard. We hit our second phase here, so she pulls out her nice orb slash rapid attack thing, and it's actually pretty easy to dodge. With the fight coming to a close, you can see I'm all topped up on health. She's getting low. I use Silk Spear a little bit as I get more comfortable with the fight. And the range on that parry is insane, to be honest. But besides that, we get a few more hits on her, and then we land the finishing blow. And that is how I beat Lace on my first try. Yeah, that'll be it. And as always, we just play Silksong for the love of the game. I will see you in the next video. Peace.